Alright, one thing we want to talk about is each transport can carry so many guys, boys, troopers, whatever you want to call it. In the case of the truck here, it can carry 12. So can this Chimera. Rhinos carry 10. Razorbacks and carry 6. I think Falcons carry 6. And then your Land Raiders, there's different versions that carry all the way up to 16, I believe. So one thing we're going to talk about is, first off, is the fire points. An open-top vehicle like this has everybody in it can fire, which is huge. Even though they're orcs with ballistic skill of 2, that's still pretty good. One thing I like to do is put 10 burner boys in here and have them go past. That's 10 flamer attacks if they get close to a unit, which is just insanely good. Another thing over here, the guard, and they're new, and not new, but in their new codex, they can have 5 guys shoot out of the back here. Well, that's pretty good also. Talking about shooting on an enclosed vehicle, you measure from the hatch. So right here on the Chimera, you see right in here, this is where you'd measure for the, people shooting out of it. The open top vehicle, you can measure anywhere on any part of it for the guy shooting out, which gives you, you could always shoot up to here. Okay, you might think, well, what's the disadvantage of an open top versus a regular transport? Well, the disadvantage is when you go to armor penetration rolls, you add +1, which that turns that 2 or 3 into a 3 or 4, so they're not very durable. And open top vehicles tend to have less armor. This one has 10 all the way around, where this has 12 in the front and 10 on the 2 sides. So that's one of the disadvantages. But anyways, that's the fire points. One thing that's in the GW FAQ is a unit inside a vehicle and the vehicle do not have to shoot at the same target. If your opponent tries to say yes they do, point him to the second FAQ that GW released, and it says that the vehicle may shoot at a different target. So that's one thing that you might want to be aware of. Alright, getting in and out of vehicles, basically on the open top, it's a lot easier to get in and out of. And this is true for all vehicles. To get in a vehicle, you have to get within 2 inches of the access point or door. So in this example right here, all the guardsmen, since they're within 2 inches of the back hatch, and that's the only hatch that the Chimera has, they would all be able to enter into the Chimera. Alright, if you notice, all the boys are within 2 inches. And actually the drivers here, these are all just for look. So they're within 2 inches, so they can actually get in also. That could also be to the side or to the rear. They just pile in. But any point on an open top vehicle, if you're within 2 inches, then you may enter. Let's say you had one guy straggling back here. If all these guys were within 2 inches and he wasn't, then the squad would not be able to embark or get in. Okay, one thing to note about vehicles is when a vehicle moves, any guys that are in here shooting out are also counted as moving. So that pretty much eliminates like putting las cannons in there, when they move, because it's a heavy weapon and we all know that heavies can't move and shoot. And if the vehicle moves at cruising speed, then your passengers may not shoot. So that's one thing also to keep in mind. Now we're going to talk about getting in or embarking. One note, since I almost forgot, is the Land Raider. The Land Raider doesn't have any fire points, but Land Raiders have such a buttload number of attacks with side-mounted or sponsons that are usually twin-linked. You got 2 of those shots, and they typically have assault cannons and multi-meltas and pistols. So they have another 2 or 3 weapons up front, so they can lay down a lot of firepower. Getting in and out of a Land Raider, Land Raiders have an assault ramp, and one of the good things about them is, well, we'll talk about it later in a video, is what they can do to you. Alright guys, let's say it's the start of your turn. If it's the start of your turn, you move these orcs first, you move them in, they embark, because they're all within 2 inches, then the transport may move. Okay? You cannot embark and disembark or get in, get out in the same turn, unless, the only way you can do that is if you load up and then the vehicle gets shot out, on your opponent's turn, and your guys have to emergency disembark because it's destroyed. But that's totally different. Alright guys, the start of your movement phase, this guy moves up. These guys may get in on their part, but this may not move any farther because it has already moved for the turn. And basically that's how you do embarking. You've got, you know, two ways. We'll go over them again. As if you're adjacent to them, you can get in, then the vehicle can move, or if the vehicle moves up, then these guys can get in. And you're thinking, well, why would they want to get in? Well, if a unit is inside a vehicle, they can't be shot at. The vehicle has to be destroyed before you can shoot the unit that's in it. So, you know, that helps protect them, especially orcs who don't have much of an armor save, and neither do the guard here. They don't have much of an armor save. All right, now we're going to talk about getting out, disembarking. Okay, your boys are all loaded up. Okay, your boys are all loaded up. It moves. Now they're going to disembark. And since this is open top, the boys would pop out. Right here. And then what makes them so good is they pop out, and then in the assault phase, they can actually assault. That makes open top vehicles pretty dangerous. Now if this was reversed, okay, now if this is reversed, then the Chimera moves up there and their guys disembark. They'll be disembark at the back right here. A lot of people you'll see will do this to give your guys extra movement, is point their rear, and then the guys would disembark right here. All right, let's say it's the start of your turn. You have some guardsmen in here. You can disembark the guardsmen since the vehicle hasn't moved yet, and the guardsmen can move, and then the vehicle can move. If the vehicle had already moved, then all the guardsmen could do is just pile out. They could not move this turn. And one thing to note, if there's characters in vehicles, if they disembark and they're within 2 inches of a unit, or sorry, if they're within 2 inches of a squad member, then they're considered part of the squad. So that's something to think about or keep in the back of your mind. There's a lot of times, especially in the Land Raiders, you'll have characters in there. All right, guys, that's pretty much the basics on, you know, transports. A couple more things to note are the damage results against the vehicle and how they affect the passengers. If you get a shaken or stunned against the vehicle, that's a 1 or a 2 on the chart, then it has no effect on the passengers. If you get a 3 or 4 on the chart, that is a weapon destroyed or immobilized, still has no effect on the passengers. The passengers stay in. Now here's where it gets a little bit dicey. If you roll a 5 or a 6, if you roll a wrecked, then these guys have to pile out. They pile out of the access point right here, and they have to take a pinning test. And as we all know, a pinning test is a leadership test. Anybody that cannot disembark is considered destroyed. And the things that would keep you really from disembarking is impassable terrain or enemies within an inch of you. And then, of course, the vehicle becomes a wreck marker. Now if you roll explodes, then everybody that was in here would take a strength 4 hit. You'd have to roll a wound, and of course you'd get your armor saves, which strength 4 is pretty good against guardsmen, not so good against orcs. And then if this exploded, what you'd do is basically you'd remove the tank and you'd place the guys that were in it in its position. As it's now a piece of terrain, it's a wreck marker. Those that survive the strength 4 attacks, then you'd have to take a pinning test to see if they're pinned. All right, one thing to note is open tops, when they explode, you only take a strength 3 hit for each guy inside instead of a strength 4, so that some orcs will. All right, in our example, we're talking about the skimmers, or like what the Eldar have and the Tau have. If one of the fast transports, if it goes all out, I'm sorry, it's not called out anymore, it's called flat out. If it goes flat out, which basically means it moves 18 inches, or actually 13 to 18, but if it moves that fast, then you can't disembark, and you're just considered moving too fast.